You've probably seen the headlines about iPro and SaveMax and frozen trust accounts. And if you're a home buyer in Ontario, you might be thinking, if I write an offer, is my deposit even safe anymore? I've seen a lot of misinformation floating around online. So in this video, I want to walk you through what a real estate trust account actually is, what went wrong in those recent situations, and what you can do to protect yourself when you're buying a home. And just to be clear, this is general information. It's not legal advice. Always talk to your own real estate lawyer about your specific situation. So let's start at the beginning. What is a real estate trust account? So in Ontario, when you buy a home and your offer is accepted, your deposit is often paid to the listing brokerage, and that money is required to go into a special bank account. It's called a real estate trust account. It's not supposed to be mixed in with the brokerage's regular operating money. It's held there in trust until your deal closes or the agreement is properly terminated. Think of it like a locked box inside the brokerage's world with your name attached to it. The deposit is held on very strict terms. It can't be released until the deal closes, both parties agree, or a court orders it. The brokerage is just holding on to it according to the rules set out in the agreement and the law. And it's not just trust in the casual sense. These trust accounts are regulated. They're supposed to be reconciled regularly, and when a deposit is held in a registered Ontario brokerage's trust account, it's covered by something called consumer deposit insurance through the Real Estate Council of Ontario, which I'll explain in a minute. Now, if these trust accounts were supposed to be protected and regulated, how did we end up with stories like iPro and SaveMax? In the iPro case, RECO, which is the Real Estate Council of Ontario, identified a significant shortfall in the trust accounts. We're talking millions of dollars in consumer deposits and commissions that should have been there and weren't. So RECO issued a freeze order on iPro's accounts and began civil action to try and recover those funds that, according to court filings, were allegedly misused by the formal principals of the brokerage. Now, more recently, with SaveMax, RECO froze the bank accounts of several SaveMax brokerages, I think 4, after finding that approximately $2.7 million had been dispersed unlawfully from those trust accounts, meaning money left those trust accounts in ways it absolutely should not have. The big takeaway for you as a buyer is this: these are not normal situations, but they are very serious. And when something like this happens, RECO moves quickly to freeze accounts to prevent further harm and then uses insurance and the courts to try to recover as much of the money as possible for consumers and agents. Let's talk about protection, because this is the part that almost never gets explained well in the news. When you work with a registered brokerage in Ontario and your deposit is held in that brokerage's trust account, it's covered by consumer deposit insurance through RECO at no cost to you. That insurance is designed to respond to situations like fraud, theft, or insolvency at the brokerage level, exactly the kind of worst case scenarios that we're talking about here. Now, here's the part that most people don't know. The coverage is up to $200,000 per claim with a $4 million cap per event. If the total claims exceed that cap, payouts could be prorated, meaning everyone shares in the available coverage. So no, it's not a perfect system, and it can be slow and stressful if the claims and court proceedings are involved, but you're not left with no backup if a brokerage mishandles trust funds. Now let's get practical. Where can your deposit actually be held? The default in many offers is that the deposit is payable to the listing brokerage in trust. That's the language that you'll usually see in the agreement of purchase and sale. But you do have options. Your agreement can be written so that a lawyer holds the deposit in the trust instead. It just needs to be clearly written into the offer, and both parties have to agree to that change. Another misconception I've seen is the idea that your deposit is automatically safer if you work with a big, well-known brand. Now, many large real estate brands you recognize operate as franchises or independently owned brokerages under a larger brand umbrella. That means individual brokerages are independently owned and operated, even though they share a logo, marketing, and systems. So what really matters for your deposit isn't just the name on the sign, it's the specific brokerage's ownership, their internal controls, how they manage trust accounts day to day, and the regulatory oversight and insurance that backstop the system. You can and should absolutely ask questions like, who is the broker of record? Have you ever had a trust audit issue? A good brokerage won't be offended by that, and if someone gets defensive or dismissive, that's a red flag. And just to give you context on where I'm coming from, I personally chose to work with a publicly traded company that has around 30,000 agents. So for me, that additional layer of corporate governance and oversight gives me more confidence when I'm telling clients their deposit is being handled properly. That said, there are plenty of smaller independent brokerages that run clean, well-managed trust accounts and operate very ethically. Size and brand alone doesn't guarantee anything, good or bad. I also wanted to mention this from the agent side because that part doesn't get talked about much either. When a brokerage misuses the trust funds, it's not just the buyers and sellers who are affected. Agents' commissions are often paid from those same trust accounts. So the vast majority of agents are just as frustrated and angry about situations like this as you are, because we rely on these systems being solid too. Okay, let's bring this back to you and your next purchase. Here's some very practical things you can do to protect yourself when you're putting down a deposit on your home in Ontario. Number one, you want to work with registered professionals only. So before you sign anything, look up your agent and their brokerage in the RECO public registry to make sure that they're registered and they are in good standing. Number two, ask exactly where your deposit will be held. Will it be held in the listing brokerage's trust account or by a lawyer in trust? If you feel safer with a law firm holding it, talk to your lawyer and agent about changing the clause in your offer. Understand the insurance backstop. If your deposit is held in a brokerage's trust account, it's backed by RECO's consumer deposit insurance. Currently, that's up to $200,000 per claim and $4 million per event, subject to policy terms. Number four, loop your lawyer in early. Talk to your lawyer ahead of time about your comfort level with where the deposit will be held and how that should be worded in the agreement. Number five, pay the deposit properly using a certified check or bank draft or a bank wire exactly as specified in the agreement. Be very cautious of any request to send money to a different account or an individual. I've heard some crazy fraud cases in the past too, with people sending emails saying to send the money somewhere else. Always confirm instructions directly with your lawyer or your realtor. If you're a buyer watching all of this unfold, it's completely understandable to feel nervous. Yes, there have been some serious breaches of trust by a small number of brokerages, but there are also regulatory systems, insurance protections, and enforcement mechanisms designed to protect consumers and pursue those who misuse the trust funds. Now, most importantly, you do have options and you do have a voice. You can ask questions, involve your lawyer early, and be intentional about who you work with. Now, if you're thinking about buying a home this year and you want to go a layer deeper, the next video you should watch is linked here, why you shouldn't buy a home in 2026. And as always, if you have any questions about deposits, trust accounts, or where to start with buying in Milton or the GTA, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to be a resource.